With all of the negativity in the world today, don't you need about an hour and a half of sass? It is the Mike Sasson Show, serving humanity one show at a time. My name is Michael Sasson. I am your host for the next hour or so of just internet radio bliss. Again, that is Alex Clemens, producer extraordinaire.
Oh, hello.
Today, we are going to be talking about this weekend's pod party. If you weren't there, you missed an amazing event. We'll be discussing that. Also, the fact that now we're getting bigger. We're getting weird people posting on my Instagram photos, so we'll be talking about that. That's pretty cool. Also, we're going to be talking about the complex legacy of one Hugh Hefner. We're also going to be discussing bar thoughts and experiences. Alex loves to drink mead. I love to drink mead as well. We'll be talking about that. Also, the free beer. Also, we're going to be talking about my 5 takes. Guess what? How did the Steelers do this weekend ratings-wise after all those people boycotted? I think you'll be subtly surprised about it. Anyways, we're going to be also talking about the fact that John Cena takes a half hour a day to shave his entire body, which some people feel is unnecessary. I feel that's just a beginning for me. Anyways, also it's Mean Girls Day, October 3rd, so we'll be talking about Mean Girls and the fact that Lindsay Lohan needs work and she knows it. Also the fact that Margot Robbie didn't think she was hot enough to be in Wolf of Wall Street. So again, my name is Mike Sasson. You're listening right now live at www.riversedgepgh.com or on TuneIn Radio, or you're watching me and Alex right now on Facebook Live, or it's after October 3rd. I almost said 13th. It's going to be
close.
Friday the 13th?
Yeah, crazy.
Crazy.
Oh my God.
Crazy.
That's never happened before.
I know, but that's the day that all the wackos go out and they just start being wacky.
I don't know. I feel like the Eclipse, more people were crazy.
Really? Did anything happen with the Eclipse?
I don't know. We had some weird people come into my store.
Because of the Eclipse?
I don't know if it was because of the Eclipse, but they were weird.
Okay.
And it was on the day of the Eclipse.
Describe their weirdness.
This one guy came in and told us that he died and was reborn, and he's one of the 3 saviors. And also one of the girls that works with me is also one of them.
Good for her.
Yeah, and he talked to her for a good half an hour about what he didn't call it a spirit animal, but basically your spirit animal, what yours would be. He said that his was some kind of wolf, and he was weird. And his name, what was his name? It was something
something
stupid.
Wait, did he have because Jesus is a great name for a Messiah. Moses, great name for a religious.
But we just think that because it's Jesus.
I understand,
he
but
could have a better name.
But would Christianity have really taken off if his name was Ned?
No.
I don't know. I mean,
but it might have. You never know.
I don't know if everyone would have
been a crazy great name now.
I don't know, but if everyone would have just sat there and just been like, Ned, why can't you make the Steelers score a touchdown? I don't think that we would be as. Marketing is so important, and the fact that it was Jesus, and then they painted him. They had the long hair, and he had the beard, and he looked very regal.
Yes, but they could have done it differently. And
I know, but I don't think it would have been. I'm saying it wouldn't have been as pronounced. It wouldn't have been as important. It just if his name was like Herb. I just think there's certain names that spell and give you the name of, that's the Son of God. Jesus, that's a good name. They would have changed. If there was a guy who represented messiahs. I bet you back in the day there was an agent who represented messiahs, and they would just be like, "Hi, this is Ned. He claims to be the Son of God," and he'd be like, "Ned, no, Son of God's not Ned. Jesus, that's the Son of God. That's the man that's the person who's going to fill the pews. It's Jesus. That's the man. That's the person we're going to do." I don't know.
I think it would have been the same.
I don't know. Comment on our blasphemy on our Facebook Live page. I personally believe that I wouldn't have followed a guy named Ned. Anyways, also, we're going to be discussing all sorts of wonderful things. But first off, again, and we just did, to drum up people watching the show or being aware of the show, what me and Alex do before is we go on Facebook Live and we show everybody and we go, "Hey, watch the show," all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
So one thing you mentioned is there's a lot of poopy stuff going on in the world. I love that you didn't know what I was about to talk about.
I didn't know what you were bringing up. We just talked about so many things when we did those. I didn't know what you were going to bring up from that. Or maybe you're like, go watch our Facebook Live videos.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I thought that was just going to be it.
Yeah, by the way, go watch our Facebook Live videos. Anyways, a lot of poopy things happening. And to continue the poopiness last night, Tom Petty the great rock and roll singer, songwriter, just an amazing performer, passed away last night. Legitimately, because it was weird. It was one of the weirdest. Because usually when officially a man passes, they do the news report and it's final, says this man is passed, and then that's it.
That's it.
But this time, I guess Tom Petty needed an encore because he passed. Then his daughter came out and said, no, he's not dead. And then everyone went, oh, well, I hope he does well. And then I woke up this morning and everyone's like, no, he's passed. So again, as of right now, it looks like Tom Petty has passed away. And
as of right now.
As of right now.
Might come back again.
He might by the end of the show, he might actually be a guest on the show. I don't know. Hopefully he's a guest on the show because he's amazing. But it made me think about it because I was going through social media and I follow Chris Rock on Instagram, and he had a nice little tribute to Tom Petty. He sat there and goes, Tom Petty was one of those artists that every time he came to town, I'm paraphrasing here by the way, every time he comes to town, I always would be like, oh, I should go see Tom Petty, and I never found the time to do it. I'd only seen him in award shows doing like 1 or 2 songs, and that was it. And now I can't. And his point was, if someone comes to town that you want to see, take the time to see him because you never know when that's the last time you're going to see him. And by the way, the reason why I picked that picture of Tom Petty, and I just thought it was amazingly cool, that was last week. That was a picture from his last performance of all time. And the thing that I love about it is he's smiling because he's doing exactly what the good Lord put him on this planet to do. That was at the Hollywood Bowl. It was at the end of his tour. He actually was in Pittsburgh this past summer and did a great show. I knew a lot of people who went there, said he did an amazing job. But now he's passed. And I'm lucky enough that I actually did see him.
Yeah?
One of the greatest jobs to have when you're in college is work a concert venue. I recommend it because for like 2 straight summers when I was in college, I worked the Meadows Music Theater. Now, it's probably named something else because it's like every other music theater. They name it out of our local bank, whatever. But it was like the Hartford, Connecticut version of Key Bank Pavilion, Post-Gazette Pavilion. They've renamed it like 30 different times. Anyways, one of the shows that I had the opportunity to see was Tom Petty. And it was one of those shows that, like, when it came up on the schedule, it was like, okay, this Tuesday it's going to be Tom Petty. It was one of those things of like, oh, okay, that should be pretty good. Yeah. Like, I wasn't, like, super excited, like, oh, my gosh, Tom Petty's coming. Swear to God, it was one of the best shows because, and I wrote down, like, I Googled the term right before the show, Tom Petty's hits. The man, it's one of those things of, like, the guy essentially wrote about 5 years or 10 years of people's like lives. Like every one of these songs, if you were alive probably from 1978 to 1998, something happened to your life while you were listening to this song on the radio.
Yeah, he's one of those people that like people will play their songs like, oh, I forgot that he did all of these songs. Like that was all him.
That's what I remember about the concert most is I walked in and I was just like, oh, okay, whatever. And it was a good crowd and people, it was typical, Hartford, Connecticut Tuesday crowd, kind of, mostly middle-aged, fairly well-dressed white people sitting around, standing up, politely clapping.
Yeah.
But every single song
you could
for
sing along
2 hours, you knew it. You didn't even know you knew it. You just know. I'll just go through it. I Won't Back Down. Free Falling, like for like 2 years was like the most played song on the radio. It was incredible. You Don't Know How It Feels, Running Down a Dream, Refugee, Mary Jane's Last Dance, American Girl, the first lick of American Girl. If you don't know it's American Girl, like 2 seconds. Breakdown, Don't Do Me That, Even the Losers, The Waiting, Don't Come Around Here No More, and then obviously one he did with Stevie Nicks, Stop Dragging My Heart Around. I mean, like, and I could have kept going and going of songs that were incredible. Now, he did provide with me, and I did drop his name in one of I find a funny story that happened at that concert. So because I'm a big guy, I would work the front of the stage.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I was like one of the bruisers that said, no. Now, I knew that Tom Petty wasn't going to be like a show where people were going to mosh. So there was no barricade. There was no thing. It was just me standing in like the aisle and, whatever. So typically, because I'd be in the front, it was these were expensive tickets. So usually it was just like upper class, Connecticutites who would sit in the front row and be very polite and all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, this kind of like 5'2", close to 300-pound woman who maybe had 5 teeth in her mouth somehow gets to the front row of the Tom Petty show.
Okay, she bought her way up there.
She found a way to get out there. So she's sitting there, and I'm right next to her, and she looks at me, and swear to God, this is how she talks. She goes, "You're not going to get mad at me if I get crazy, right?" And I just look at her and I go, "No, ma'am. You just as long as you don't harm anybody, you'll be fine." She goes, "Are you going to throw me out if I want to show Tom Petty my boobies?" Now, we had no standard procedure. Essentially,
no one trained you on that.
Well, the thing is like technically, you're not supposed to. But if a woman just kind of, usually 99% of the time, you flash your boobies.
Yeah, and then you're done.
Then you put it down. Everyone got a thrill of seeing your boobies. You got a thrill of showing Tom Petty your boobies. That's enough. So really, what we were trained to do was say, okay, fine. But, make it quick, whatever. We have bigger fish to fry. Really, your job is to make sure that no one gets like physically hurt or no one's destroying the venue or anything like that. So Tom Petty comes out, starts playing the first lick of American Girl. Everyone gets up. Everyone stuffs like that. This woman, who, again, probably is only about 10 feet away from Tom Petty, lifts up her shirt to expose two breasts. One was maybe about 5 inches lower than normal. The other one literally is like bouncing on her knee. Like it's like it's just the most just weird looking breasts in the history of breasts. Like they had like the New York City subway line like drawn. I mean, it was just like, not the most insanely beautiful breasts in the world. The face of Alex is kind of showing me that. Anyways, I expected her to go whoop, whoop. Oh no.
No.
She kept those puppies out for half of American Girl.
Oh, did he? I feel like I would get distracted if I was him.
Well, that's the kind of pro he was.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What just happened there?
What just happened? Why is that happening?
Why? Please cover up.
Yeah, please.
So I can finish the song.
Well, that's what could you imagine if he stopped it and just been like, hold it. Put those away. But so eventually, like the people around me are all just like, kind of like, this is not cool. Like they're all looking at me and I'm just like, let her, she'll eventually figure it out. No. Most of the way through American Girl, she's keeping them out, dancing, like having the shirt, like doing this, all this, up. She almost like the whole breasts are, it's just, and so we're all sitting there and just like, eventually everyone's just like, you have to do something. So I lean into her ear and I go, "Miss, you have to put your shirt down." And she goes, "You said I could show my breasts and it wasn't a big deal." And I tried to think of something really quick to not sit there and be like, "Everyone's disgusted by your breasts. Please put those away." So I just whispered, I go, "Ma'am, you're distracting Tom."
Oh, wow.
And she sits there and goes, "Oh, okay, I don't want to ruin the show." And so she put down her shirt. And so I found that that's the best way to, like, diffuse the situation. Like you said. I mean, I didn't say that, hey.
Yeah, you didn't say it in a bad way.
Yeah, I was just like.
Probably took it in a good way.
Yeah, like you're distracting Tom.
Yeah.
So that from that point on, that's how I would like get anybody to do anything. Like I would just drop the name of like if it was Metallica, they would go up to me like, "Oh, you're banging the thing." Like, "James has requested that you stop doing that." And so they'd be like, "James Hetfield?" "Yes, James Hetfield himself."
Yeah, he told me in my
earpiece. In my ear, because we all have like earpieces.
Yeah.
Even though I'm only making $8 an hour, they all gave us $1 million earpieces. Like we're the Secret Service. They have said that you're distracting. Rod Stewart and Rachel Hunter have both said that you're distracting because you are bothering everybody here. Oh, if Mr. Stewart thinks so. But again, enjoy some Tom Petty. And also, whenever there's a show, whenever there's a comedian, whenever there's, go out and see him.
That's why I went to see Cher and Bette Midler like 2 years ago.
Because you're worried one of them's going to die?
Well, it's just Cher has told us that it's going to be her farewell tour like 15 times. When I was 10, it was supposed to be her farewell tour, and my mom didn't take me, and she felt really bad. So then she took me, 2 years ago because she wanted me to see her before she stopped performing or died.
I believe Cher actually just released a new like single. I might be weird. I was like watching television and Cher was like singing with like a rapper. Like how Believe came out. Believe is now 20 years old, and everyone was weirded out when Believe came on because she was auto-tuned and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, Cher is, modern, and it was a #1 hit and all that kind of stuff.
Because it's a good song.
But it's like, when someone from a previous era somehow updates their sound and stuff like that, and you sit there and be like, wow, I can't believe, she just hired a producer who knows how to do it.
The last time that I saw her, she did have a couple, like she had a new CD out, and there was some good songs on it. I'm not going to lie. I still listen to some of them. They really they're very kind of feminist, I would say. Like I'm pretty sure one of them is called like Woman's World or something like that. Yeah, but they like pump you up, and they're like, I'm fucking awesome. I listen to them when I get ready in the morning.
There you go. So
she's still good.
So what me and Alex are saying is, if there's somebody out there that you haven't seen, make sure you go see him, and rest in peace, Tom Petty. Now, on to another, let's go to a positive thing. This past weekend, the pod party.
Yeah.
Now, we were pumping this for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Now, here's one thing to understand. We pumped it and we said free beer, free mead, podcasting, all that kind of good stuff.
What else could you possibly want in life?
Now, I'll be honest with you. One time, when I was saying this, I was just like, this sounds too good to be true. This sounds...
It's mostly because of the free beer. And it's not even like free, like Natty Light, you know? It's
Which,
not
by the way,
shit.
if Natty Light wants to sponsor us, we're more than willing to be Natty Light. But...
I guess.
Let's be honest.
Then we're going to have way more Jell-O fights.
Yeah, then you go. Yeah, then we're going to have Jell-O fights, which honestly, if there was ever sweeps in internet radio, that would be when we do it, the Jell-O fights. Anyways... but yeah, it was so again, thank you very much to North Country Brewing and to Laurel Highlands Meadery.
Yes.
We both had mead. Now, as I mentioned before, like even when I was saying it, I was like, this sounds too good to be true. It was true. It was free beer. It was free mead. And then on top of that,
You didn't even have to ask anyone for beer. You just picked up a beer and, went about your ways.
Yes.
That's the best part. I don't even have to talk to anyone when I want a beer.
No. So it's just that's how you would like that if that's how just like bars were just in general. You didn't have to like signal anybody.
No, I do like bartenders though.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate them.
There you go.
And I like to talk to them. Sometimes they're attractive,
Nice. Anyway, so again, and we tried mead. I tried all 3 meads.
Well, okay.
So I went in the back and tried all the mead.
I had a decent amount of beer, so I was going to take it easy on the mead. It's a lot of sugar for me.
I like the mead. I thought that was good. And thank you again to the Panza Gallery. Now, one thing about, and I was thinking about how I would kind of surmise this whole experience.
Yes, surmise it.
And one thing that I kept on thinking that night and since then is Brian Crawford, the Godfather. If he has many skills, but one skill he definitely has is exceeding any expectations that you have about events.
That's true.
Because I was sitting there thinking about the Millvale Music Festival, and I was going, you know what? Again, when we were talking about that for months, I was thinking it's just going to be, we're going to be in a bar. There's going to be 2 people playing acoustic guitar, and there's going to be 3 people watching. No, it was a huge like Woodstock event, and it was amazing, and there was like thousands of people, and it was one of the greatest things I've done in the last couple of years. Same thing with this. When we were all sitting there, we were, I've done events for major radio stations that have millions of dollars in marketing money and broadcast to 3 million people in which nobody showed up.
Yeah.
Literally not one person bothered to show up. There were at least 100 people listening to us at the end of the night, and walking in and out of the Panza Gallery, they got the count closer to around 200.
Yeah.
So 200 people showed up. Now, granted, they might have been there just for free beer, which fine, great, wonderful, be there.
Maybe you caught some, a little bit of podcast while you were there.
But one of the things that got me about the situation was there was nobody that was just like walking past. It wasn't a bar. It wasn't just like, they happen to be there and they just kind of watch us. No, you had to walk into the Panza Gallery to sit down and support the River's Edge. And to have that many people on a Saturday night when there was concerts, Wiz Khalifa was in town. There was so many different other things going on, college football, all this kind of stuff. And for people to show up, upwards of 200 people to show up to support local podcasting
and actually listen.
That was the other thing that happened.
That was like nerve-wracking for me.
Really?
You're used to standing up in front of a lot of people and people like listening to you. I'm not used to that. I'm always doing stuff whenever we're talking, or I'm just talking to you. And like all the other live podcasts that we've done, it's been like in a bar where people, some people are listening, but not everyone. And just sitting up on a stage, not doing anything else. It's like, this is a lot.
One thing that I felt bad about was the fact that because there was an audience, I kind of got the performer in me, and I didn't want to like make you feel like, oh my God, I have something to say?
That.
I'm sorry. But
even when we're just talking, I feel like, okay, this is Mike, the performer.
But one thing that got me was the fact that I got them to chant for you, which was nice. I got them to chant for your blue hair. I got them to chant for spicy chicken nuggets. which I thought was important because that's
totally
a movement.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, so those are things that we have to do. So again, thank you very much for everybody going to the podcast. Yeah, there was 100 some odd people listening to us record a podcast, and everyone was absolutely just fantastic in terms of their praise afterwards. Now, one thing I want to get is the inside. Your sister, Liam, who obviously has come to other events, but he showed up. Your sister, Abby, your mom and dad, your cousin, all these people showed up. After the fact, what did you get any reports about were they disappointed? Did they like it? What was the deal?
So I got mainly like I sat next to like my sister and my parents afterwards, so I got more of their feedback than anyone else, like than my cousins and stuff.
And what was their feedback?
Then they said that they really liked it. Like my mom, if like you looked at her the whole time, like she had a huge smile on her face. You know, my dad doesn't. You know.
Yeah,
He's
your
not
dad
one
was
to have a huge smile.
Yeah, your dad was trying to actually kind of intimidate me a little bit. And it worked a little.
You know, afterwards, my mom texted me and she's like, "Oh, I'm so very proud of you." She was so nice to me last week. I like when I do things so that they like can, you know, tell me that they're proud of me, and it's okay. Like my siblings won't get, you know, jealous.
There you go.
That they're proud of me for no reason.
Awesome. Now, one thing I did, now just to understand how I had never met your parents. And so your mom was very nice and obviously always comments on the show, and we very much appreciate that. And your father now likes the show and everything, and it's very nice.
He always likes the show. He watches it. He just doesn't say anything to me about it because I think he feels awkward with some of the things that we talk about.
Nice.
I remember the first time that he talked to me about it, and we said something about vaginas, and he was like, I can't do that, Alex.
Well, one thing he came up to me is like, now normally when you meet somebody, they shake your hand, they go, hello, nice to meet you, everything like that. So he comes over and he shakes my hand and squeezes it pretty hard, which, how do I respond? Do I squeeze back and try to like do an
You're
argument?
You're already a large man.
Yeah, so he sits there, he squeezes it and he goes, I got a bone to pick with you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good to know. All right. I just was like, let me go to the other side of the room.
Yeah, that's how he greets everyone. That's how he talked to my bosses whenever he met them. He said something along those lines, and then you need to give her a raise.
There you go.
So he's like that with everyone.
Just so you understand, just gave Alex a raise. There you go.
Yeah.
All good stuff. Now, one thing that is also happening with that podcast is because the podcast is getting bigger, we're getting people that I don't know on our social media kind of, in my opinion, saying kind of weird stuff. So show last week, if you can read what, so I was pumping up the podcast, pumping up the pod party and everything like that. And this is what I eventually wrote. So you can read what I wrote.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, read it.
You want me to read your caption?
Yes.
Okay. This Saturday at the Panza Gallery, come see my co-host Alex and I do the Mike Sasson Show live while you drink free alcohol. I'm pretty sure this is the most important international podcasting event you are ever going to attend.
Which is true.
At least the Pittsburgh City paper thinks so. #podcast, #Pittsburgh.
Okay. Then someone that I do not know said this.
The only alcohol I need is the love of Christ in my heart.
And could I?
Did you like look at their profile?
Yeah.
Did it seem like that was a serious thing that they were saying?
No.
No, they're just joking.
They were trying to, I guess, be joking.
Jokes.
But I mean, so how do you respond? Because that's on there. So I can't sit there and go, screw you, I hate you, never comment on my show ever again. So that, to me, was the only thing.
Does the love of Christ do the same things as alcohol for him? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. Again, if you are that person who commented on the show, comment away. We'd like to talk to you about this comment, but I think my comment was about the only thing you could possibly say.
Good to know.
Good to know. That's the only thing I could possibly have thought of when it came to that comment.
Well, you should have said, like, all right, let's get shit-faced on his love.
Yeah, shit-faced on. By the way, that sounds like a rap song from a Christian rock that would, or a rap singer, like,
Yeah.
JC, the guy has like a big crucifix, talks about like the sacrifice of Christ. We'll go, let's get shit-faced on God's love. And then starts pouring like sacramental wine on like nuns and shit. Like,
Maybe you should be that guy.
That should be my thing. I should be like
That's
a
your
hardcore.
destiny.
That's my destiny. That's also the stripper I met last night. Anyways, speaking of destinies, it's your destiny to keep listening and watching the River's Edge and the Mike Sasson Show. When we come back, It's going to be Bar Thoughts and Experiences with Alex, a very special Bar Thoughts and Experiences, because they're all special. Also, we'll be talking about my 5 takes. And then eventually, it'll be the great Garrett Titlebaum, who has a great podcast that I have been a guest on called Glad to See He's Working, or Nice to See He's Working. It's one of those two. Anyways, Garrett will be with us in about 15 minutes. But first, it will be Bar Thoughts and Experiences. It'll be 5 takes. And it'll be the Mike Sasson Show. We'll be right back.
The Double L Bar, Grant Avenue, Millville, Pennsylvania, reminding you that you're listening to the River's Edge Radio Network.
It is the Mike Sasson Show live on the River's Edge. You're listening at www.riversedgepgh.com or on TuneIn Radio or on Facebook Live, or you're listening after the fact on Google Play, iTunes, or SoundCloud. I apologize if you were listening and you haven't heard us. We actually did do a show for about a half hour, but you can watch it later. We were talking about Tom Petty and our podcast party. It was really, really good. Sorry you missed it. Anyways, but you came in for the best part. It's Alex. It's Bar Thoughts and Experiences. She's going to play the song. We got about a room full of 100 people to dance to this song on Saturday. Play the song, Alex.
Maybe y'all can relate. My style's dope any way that you slice. It's a fresh cut, hope that you like. About to open up a can of some cancer. When it come to pizza, I've got high standards.
One of the things that I really do like, the fact is that I really was enjoying on Saturday was the fact that we got 100 people literally to dance to that song, which
Yeah,
I thought
that's
was that. But that's when you know that a crowd is into it. Like when you're doing comedy and you can get everybody to sit there and say, "Hey, clap if you've ever been to Tahiti," and you get the whole crowd to start clapping. That's when you know they're energized. Because I have had this last night. I was in a show. Didn't do too well, and I sat there and I was like, "Hey, clap if you're from the area, if you're from Western Pennsylvania." Nobody clapped. Then I'm like, "Okay, well, where are you from?" And no one said anything. And then eventually I'm like, "Clap if you're not paying attention to me." And like literally they're all just kind of like doing their own shit, and I'm like, "Okay, this isn't going to go well."
Nope, it's over.
It's over.
You should just stop that.
I more or less just burn the audience, but that's what happens.
My God.
Well, yeah, that's what I do. Exactly. Anyways, it's Bar Thoughts and
Like
Experiences.
literally burn them?
Well, no, I did not literally light a match and just start burning them. Basically, it means like you just kind of just say, "Okay, this show's not going to do well," and just start ripping the audience. Anyways,
I don't like that.
I don't like it either. It's something I don't like to do, but sometimes it's something you have to do. Something you also have to do is listen to Bar Thoughts and Experiences with Alex. Alex, what happened in your brain after you drank alcohol this past weekend?
So I'm going to talk about my last week of, me being more famous than I've ever been.
Nice.
So, as you know, obviously we did the show last week, so people saw my face there.
Uh-huh.
And then Wednesday I was on KDKA, so people saw my face there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was at the bar on Wednesday night.
And people saw your face there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
But and then a commercial for our store came up in which my wrist is in it.
Nice.
Yes.
How did you know? Because they saw the tattoo. How did you know it was your wrist, or you just know it's your wrist?
I was in it.
Okay, but how do you
know
know they
what's in
didn't
the
cut
video.
later in? They sat there and went, "That's not
I've
the."
seen it a million times.
But you're like sitting there. They might have gotten a stunt wrist. You don't know that.
I was there
Okay.
the whole time.
There's ways that they can, do that.
Yeah, we're not that big.
Okay, they didn't they didn't
To
sit
get
there.
someone to have a stupid other wrist
Okay.
when mine is perfect.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't know you had a perfect wrist. My bad, Your Majesty.
Anyways, and then on Saturday, obviously we had the pod party. So a couple things happened to me because of being this famous.
Okay.
So there's this bus driver. He was my old bus driver that used to take me up to Mount Washington all the time. And so I knew him pretty well. I'd say hi to him every time I got on the bus, blah, 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 have some small talk.
Mm-hmm.
I took another bus, and he was the driver of that bus. And when I was getting off, he was like, "Hey, you work for that Steel City store, right?" And I was like, I wasn't wearing any of my Steel City clothes at that point, which is ridiculous. And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, I saw you on the commercial." And I was like, "What? you saw me on the commercial? And he's like, yeah, like I recognize you. I was like, if anyone's going to recognize me from that commercial, it's definitely my bus driver.
Because the bus driver saw your wrist putting the money in. Yeah,
yeah.
so
And he's
she
like,
knows
oh, I know that wrist. I see that every day.
That's a big time wrist.
Yeah, so I'm going to show that off a little bit more.
Okay.
And then...
Like, do you think you could get dudes simply because of your wrist?
Yeah. I mean...
Well, show the camera right now your wrist.
Oh, it's this one.
Oh, that's the good wrist.
Yes.
Show the difference between a good wrist and a bad wrist. So what's the other wrist? Okay, so give me the other wrist. Let me see if I can judge which good wrist. Comment away if you think Alex has a good wrist or a bad wrist. See, you don't have the writing underneath on. I think you like that because the other one has like more special meaning to you.
No.
Okay.
It's just a better wrist.
You just feel it's a better wrist.
It's on my better side.
Which wrist is mine is better? Anyways.
Neither.
They're both ugly.
And then people called into my work and they're like, I just saw you on TV. And now I get to talk to you. That's really cool. Also, I know you were there for half of this. When we were at Scarpace's last Wednesday, a girl came out to us while we were outside, and she started hitting on me. Do you remember this?
Yes.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
And you asked her what her name was, and she said, her girlfriend, pointing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, decent pickup line, I guess, if she was better looking.
Yeah. Oh, you mean she wasn't good enough to for you to dive into lesbianism?
You see her?
Yeah.
And you couldn't have gotten that?
Well, I mean, she wasn't horrific looking. I don't know, maybe a few beers. Who knows?
No.
Okay.
And just the way she talked. And I don't know, she was a little bit too pushy with that, you know?
If someone's
She's like,
going
I've been staring at you from across the bar the whole night.
Yeah, she sounds like she would like tie you up and do weird stuff to you. But like, okay, so if a woman wants to like really explore every aspect of your sexuality with you, you're saying be subtle about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty much with anyone, you know, any guy. I don't want any guy being super like, you know.
So if a guy came up to you and been like, what's your name? Like, your new boyfriend. And I'm like,
I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
Really, dude.
Get out. You would show him the bad wrist and like leave.
But so that wasn't all that happened.
Oh.
Yeah, more to the story. So you left, and then a little while later, me and Liam, my roommate, were standing outside. And she comes out. She walks right up to Liam, and she goes, I don't know how you did it. Looks directly at his penis. Looks back up. I was like, I don't know, but good job, man. And then just walks away and drives off. And me and Liam were like, he has a really good personality.
So she just looked at his bulge.
Like straight up, like didn't try and hide the fact that at all, but like straight looked at his penis.
That woman was very odd. And Scarpace's...
Just very upfront.
Yeah, very...
honest.
Well, because like I was doing a comedy set, at least that's what possibly you would call it, what I was doing at Scarpace's on Wednesday. And she walked by me because like at Scarpace's, people can walk by you while you're on stage. It's very...
Yes, that is a thing.
That is a thing. And she grabbed my ass.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, all right, fine, drunk lady, go. Well, see you later. I'm not going to be like a whole like grabbing my pearls, go, oh my, not dear. Anyways, so eventually she goes back outside. Before you showed up, she comes in, she grabs it again. And I sit there and I go, okay, that's great. And then she bends over and sits there and goes, slap it. And I just go, what? She goes, slap it. So I'm like, slap it. Because she was in like yoga pants. I go, slap. She goes, I thought you were bigger than that. Slap it hard. So now I'm really kind of mad. So I just go, whack. And she goes, ow, that was too hard. So I think that's when she lost interest in me and went, you know what? I want to go for the smaller, dainty girl.
I think, you know, she's like, they're famous.
Yes.
She's after the money. That's what she's after.
She's back after the the Mike Sasson Show fortune.
Yeah, that's what she's after.
That's what's going to happen. The people have recognized me from like on football when I was playing football, or you know when I was on other radio shows. But the coolest one that ever happened to me was I was on the phone with my brother, and I was walking in downtown Pittsburgh, and I walked by a restaurant, and one of the waiters screams at me and goes, "Mike Sasson!" And I'm on the phone, and I look at him, and I'm thinking, it's got to be somebody I know, no one, and I'd never met the guy.
Oh, my God.
And so I'm sitting there, and my brother just on the phone just sits there and goes, did someone just scream your name? Who was it? And I go, I don't know, just some guy. And he walks up to me while my brother's on the phone and sits there and goes, hey, man, I saw your stand-up like a week ago. It was hilarious. I really liked it. And I just wanted to say that you do a good job, and where could I see you? And just all that stuff. I'm like, oh, thank you very much. And I'm very, very nice. And my brother's hearing this. So then eventually, like he goes away, and I'm very complimentary. And my brother sits there and goes, That's so cool that happened.
I think you made it.
And I think you made it. And then he didn't realize, no, I'm still a poverty-stricken open mic comic. Anyways, but it has happened.
Aww.
It is a beautiful thing when it does happen. And so if you do see Alex and you do see I, make sure that you're very polite. Make sure that and we will obviously spend a little time with you.
Yeah, please don't call me your girlfriend. Though.
Yeah, and don't stare
Don't do
at
that.
friends' penises and judge them. That's
Right?
That's in general. That's in general. Who knows?
We said next time he's just going to be like, I have a huge dick. And then I'm going to be like, yeah. That's it.
That's it.
That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, we wanted to let her know that he also has a good personality.
Absolutely.
It's about more than that.
It is about more than that. That's what I say, ladies. It's about more than that. But you know what isn't more than that? Alex's bar thoughts and experiences. Thank you very much, Alex,
Wait,
for sharing.
That's a bad thing.
I don't know. I just say things sometimes just to end segments. Anyways, it's the Mike Sasson Show. Up next, it is my 5 takes, the most metal takes ever. Again, it's my version of bar thoughts and experiences, only I did these stone sober, which I think makes them a little weirder. Number 5. Why do we have to say nice things about somebody when they die? If you did like the person, definitely say nice things. But if you actually thought that the person was a complete douche, either shut up or don't have to make something up. Like, for instance, what's his name? The comedian, I just lost his name. That's how much I hated him. He was the Nutty Professor, Jerry Lewis. Everything I'd ever heard about Jerry Lewis was he's a complete piece of shit. He locked his kids out of his will, which, by the way, I'll be honest, I don't mind. My kids, eventually, if they're watching this in the future, I don't have any money, and if I have any money in the future, I'm just going to hopefully spend it by the time I die. Anyways, but everything about him was he was not a very nice person.
Yeah.
But everyone, when he died, would be like, well, he's a comic genius. No, he wasn't. I saw his comedy. It was weak. Anyways, but the thing is everybody just had to say something nice. And I'm just like, here, either A, just acknowledge that he's dead and move on. Let's just not make up stuff about dead people. Okay? Like, it was like for a week afterwards, everyone has to be like, well, he raised a lot of money. He was a douche. Call him a douche and just move on. Number 4. If you were wondering, after all of last week's hubbub about the Star-Spangled Banner and people taking a knee and all this kind of stuff, and so many people burning Steeler paraphernalia and saying they were never going to watch again, hey, Mike, how were the ratings last week for the Steeler-Raven game compared to the week before? Well, the report came out yesterday, and actually the ratings were up.
There you go.
So
I think that this week everyone was just like curious as to see what they were going to do. So I feel like people were watching because of that.
Well, then maybe they've added a layer of intrigue to the NFL because now it's going to be like something that just was kind of boring and kind of like, oh, the national anthem, great. Now has amazing
now it's like
intrigue.
A new episode every week.
So now what they should do is like they should add other intrigues. Like at the end of the end of the game when the coaches shake hands, they should just fight.
Or there's magic.
Like they should. What do you mean? Like what do you mean magic?
I don't know. They shake hands and then doves fly out.
That'd be pretty cool.
Boom.
Or you would wonder what happens
what?
when they shake hands. Like one time they fight, one time there's doves, one time they make out. Just stuff that happens every week that you're just like, okay, what's going to happen? And so everyone stays in the stadium wondering, okay, Mike Tomlin and Harbaugh, what are they going to do? Oh, they're going to lick whipped cream off each other's butts. You know, whatever. Like something weird. But that'd be kind of weird because every week that people would stay in the stadium to see what would happen.
Yeah.
So again, adding a layer of intrigue. The ratings were up last week, so who knows? I was just thinking about this the other day.
What?
There's so many like dating apps. There's so many apps for, trying to meet people, and everyone goes, oh, it's so hard to meet people. But if you think about it, people have been meeting people and hooking up since the beginning of time.
Yes.
We're making it maybe just a little bit too complex. So my question is one of the problems we have right now in our world, we have too much choice and it's just inundating us and making life too difficult and complex?
No.
Okay. Anyways, but like for instance, I make a joke where like back when I was like, growing up, if you wanted to see like a porno movie, it would be on a VHS tape. And no matter what was on that VHS tape, it was nude women and men having sex, you were happy. Now that you have unlimited pornography, you've become extremely selective about what you're going to watch. You're like, nope, I don't like her hair.
Yeah, that's okay.
Nope, I don't like that guy's attitude.
I mean, it does take a little bit longer for sure.
Yeah. But was I
don't think that's a
happier
bad
when I
thing.
was just happy when it was just, oh, sex on film? I'm happy.
I never had that, so I don't know.
I know. But like in
Sorry.
general, was there something that used to be limited in terms of your choice? Like right now you have unlimited food options because you have a car and all this kind of stuff.
I do.
But when you were like 6 or 7 years old and your mom would just be like, here's chicken nuggets. You were like, yay, chicken nuggets.
Yeah. But I don't think it's bad now. I mean, it does, like I said, everything just takes longer because then you have more choices to decide from. But I like having choices. I like to know that I could get tacos or Chinese food or pizza or like just a bag of chips delivered to my house anytime I want, you know?
By the way, another thought I had was I really wish like you could get a good slice of pizza in a drive-through. Like a good slice, not like the personal pan pizza type
Maybe you should
pizza.
do that.
That's my idea.
That's your
Boom.
next venture.
There you go. I got to get a venture. Anyways, someone also wrote something that I thought was interesting. Here's another one of my takes. The biggest driver of the economy is people's search for dopamine. People searching for an altered state. Now, obviously, you're talking about drugs, but also social media, bad food. That's,
Yeah, I mean, you could put a lot of things into that category.
So essentially, if anybody sits there and says, what's the key to a successful business in 2017? I would sit there and says, does it drive people's thirst for dopamine? If it does, it'll succeed. If it doesn't, man, I hope this show fills you with dopamine. And finally, a lot of people have been talking recently because of the terrorist attack in Las Vegas, about gun control and all this kind of stuff. I'm just going to put it simply. The reason why nothing ever happens is because the political will of the people for it is outweighed by the people against it. And until that changes, nothing's going to change. Quite simply, people have to lead. People have to be voted out of office from the people that want to make changes with gun laws against the people that want to keep them. Because guess what? Now the congressmen know that if they go against gun laws, they're going to get voted out. That they want to keep their jobs. They want to make sure that they don't have to go back and get real jobs. They want their BS nothing jobs. Which, to be honest with you, if any human being can be a congressman. You ever met Congress? They're not very bright people. They're mostly people that just want to have no-show jobs, show up most of the time, and get on TV, and then eventually meet Alex. That's pretty much all Congress people want to eventually do is meet big-time celebrities like Alex. That's why I say if we can get them voted out, then that would help. You know what also would help? Getting Garrett Titlebaum on the show because he's outside. We're going to get him on. It's going to be amazing. He's got an amazing podcast. He'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Hugh Hefner. We'll also talk about Madonna. We'll also talk about Margot Robbie. We'll also talk about a whole bunch of stuff. It's the Mike Sasson Show. I'm Mike Sasson. That's Alex Clements. We'll be right back.
Nothing like a glass of wine on a cool, comfortable fall night. Especially this October on the 7th at 6 p.m. Imagine, wine along the shore of the Allegheny, lots of wine, live music from the Funky Fly Project, a bonfire, chocolate, coffee, locally grown food, and so much more. Of course, I'm talking about the Millville Harvest Moon Wine Fest, October 7th, 6 to 9 p.m. at Millville's Riverfront Park. Do your taste buds a favor and do not miss this event. Tickets can be found at showclicks.com.
Are back. It's the Mike Sasson Show live on www.riversedgepgh.com or on TuneIn Radio, or you're watching us live on Facebook Live, or you are listening after the fact on many of the podcast formats, either Google Play, SoundCloud, or iTunes. Again, thank you very much to everyone who supports the show. Comment away. We will read every comment at the end of the show, and hopefully some of those comments are about my guest over here. He has his own podcast that I have been on. Say the name of it again for everybody.
Garrett Titlebaum. It's nice to see he's working.
It's nice to see he's working, which if you ever, that's like a grandma thing where it's just like, it's almost like when a comic comes up to you after a show and just like, hey, keep writing.
Yeah,
it's the grandma version of like
my bub and my grandmother used to say it about actors in movie trailers. And
Okay.
always De Niro is our family joke. Well, it's nice to see De Niro's got nice work going.
Yeah.
It's nice to see he's doing Dirty Grandpa now.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to see because you know what? I don't know if he has any other skills.
The
I don't know.
intern was great.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm glad he's got something going on in his life.
Yeah, he's just shit. I love people that are like I said this last week where like I'm sitting there and I'm watching the new trailer for the new Tom Cruise movie that apparently is really, really good. And I was happy that it was good for Tom.
You're just excited that these people are still doing it, and, you know, still kicking it after all these years. That's my goal.
Well, here's the other thing. When you get to a certain age and it does, like Tom Cruise is still like, you know, running around, everything like that, you're like, okay, I still have a chance. He's like 15 years older than me, so I'm good.
My window's not closed yet.
Yeah, my window's not completely closed in terms of my life. Again, Garrett Titlebaum, very close friend, great comic in the area. Go see him. Also listen to his podcast. Now, one thing about the podcast, you've had pretty much almost everybody in terms of
75 weeks this week.
75 weeks.
Wow.
Congratulations.
It's a long time.
And you've had obviously some of the biggest names in comedy in the area sit down at your desk. You had me on, and we talked. And
I like how you said your name after that.
I know. There's a point for that.
We did it after the week of your first episode, the day following your first episode of the Mike Sasson Show when I had you on. I try to time it out. You know, Ray Zawadny has a show this weekend at Club Cafe. He was on. Terry Jones was last week's guest. You know, I just try to help the scene,
Absolutely,
when we can promote.
Now, we were there. We were recording at Unplanned Comedy in Lawrenceville, and it was still being built. So I think the weird thing about it was me finding the facility, because now it's beautiful and I've had shows there. But at the time, it was just like walking into just like a rickety old attic. But there was all of this like podcasting equipment. I'm like, okay, I'm safe.
Yeah, we moved.
It's not going to be Saw all of a sudden.
We launched the show, I think, 4 weeks after we got the lease, and so it's been a slow build. But the theater is gorgeous now. The first Saturday of the month, I host a variety show there with a Talking Sandwich, my best friend, Lunch Meat Grumblekraut, voiced by Will Ness. Mike's going to headline the one in December. But yeah, this weekend we got 3 guys out of Boston that'll be on there. But it's my Pee-wee's Playhouse. It's what I've always wanted.
That sounds
to be.
amazing.
It's goofy and weird.
So if you've ever been to the Unplanned Comedy Theater, it's a beautiful theater for comedy, beautiful theater for stand-up. I did an ACLU benefit in January there. Absolutely fantastic place to watch stand-up. And also below there's a great, I don't know, I almost called it a restaurant. I guess
Hop Farm is a brewery.
Brewery, okay, yeah, but great beer, everything like that. And so it's amazing. By the way, great beer in a sense that I drank one of them and I was just buzzed.
Yeah.
Like they fill the...
I drank 4 of them at the same time.
And you
drank
told
one.
everyone how much you loved everyone except me.
Yes, I did.
When
That's very true.
when Alex gets drunk, she gets very, very happy and then rips me a new asshole. She sits there and then this motherfucker.
Well, you're a comic. You roast the ones you love the most.
Yes, that's what I keep
That's
telling.
totally it, yeah.
That's what I keep telling myself.
Right.
Anyways. Now, I was on the show again like that, and now one thing I a little curious about, and I again, like at the year end, you had me on as one of the top 10 episodes.
Yeah, one of the fan favorite moments.
Fan favorite moments.
Wow.
What did you, I guess, learn about me on that show?
The story that sticks out to me, and it wasn't the moment that the fans picked, was you getting your first job in radio and showing up at the office with your reel, like the box, faking how to get a delivery in to the person who was the decision maker, the gatekeeper for that. What is it? The sports radio.
Yeah, Sports 93.7 The Fan.
And you were like, no, this is a package. It needs to get to him. I need this delivered tomorrow. And just that sort of tenacity to go above and beyond to put yourself in front of the right people, I think, is impressive.
Well, and people listen to that.
Did you just ask him to tell a nice story about you, basically?
Yes.
What's your best Mike anecdote?
What's your best thing about me? Anyways, one thing that I and just so you know, people who have listened to the podcast have come up to me and commented about that, and
Sure.
I always like to share that story because to me, one of the things that I like to kind of tell younger comics about any opportunity I've ever had is A, it's because I've showed up, and B, because I wasn't I wasn't afraid to raise my hand and say, hey, I want this.
Well, and even there's other stuff too. Now that I'm thinking about how much I like you in that
Thank
episode,
you.
I got a compliment recently from another young comic, Joey Welsh, about something we discussed where it was when you go to the audience for something, you can't ask a generic question like, "What is everybody?" or like, "Have you ever done this?" It's clap if you. You have to make it so they don't know how to respond otherwise. You're not having a real conversation with those folks.
Yeah, no, you want to get, because they're in the dark, you can't just sit there and say, hey, is anybody, because then half of them raise their hands,
People
some
don't
of them
know how
say,
to react,
yeah.
so
So you have to give them command. One thing
Clap if you want.
Well, one thing that taught me that was being a football coach.
Sure.
Because what I learned very early on, and this is a management 101, people do exactly what you tell them. So if you sit there and you tell a seventh grader how to get into a football stance, if he has a shitty football stance, it's probably because you are telling him exactly. You have to tell. No, you have to put your feet here. You got to put your knees here. You have to be very specific about what you want.
So much because of form.
Yeah, because again, and in terms of stand-up comedy, it's like, okay, well, like on The Fan, I learned this where it's like if I sit there and I would pretty much command the audience. Call now.
You're loud enough.
Yeah,
at this
but
point.
I would sit there. Yeah, they actually heard it through. I wasn't even on the air yet.
Not broadcast.
Yeah, I wasn't even broadcast. They just heard it through the windows. But I would sit there and be like, "So Pittsburgh, what do you think about the Steelers defense? Call right now, 412 blah 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 blah." And it would instantaneously.
Yeah.
There'd be like 10 phone calls because again, the people in the audience want you to tell them what exactly you want from them.
Yes.
And so that's.
How can I make you happy?
Yeah. How can I make you? But like, yeah, that's a very good. But again, and then more recently, again, a very famous friend of mine, or very good friend, Terry Jones, was on this past weekend. Absolutely great.
Thank you.
Great podcast. What do you want to get from when you interview these comics?
I do want it to be the lessons for the class behind me. I think ultimately I'm only 2.5 years into doing stand-up. I'd like to use it as a tool for me to find out about them as people. I just think that we have so many interesting backstories, but I'm curious about how you do this at a high enough level that it's financially viable, because we've all had to balance garbage jobs that we don't like in order to do what we do, and it's very difficult to find that balance of how am I making enough money, whether it's do you start hosting open mics, do you do things outside of it like the podcast, like radio, I host trivia once a week now. Anything that puts a microphone in my hand is experience with interacting with a crowd.
Well, one thing that I've always found interesting about comedians in general is even some of the biggest names that I have dealt with, the way you get them to shut up is you tell them how great they are, but the way you get them to start talking is you just sit there and start talking about the craft of stand-up comedy. And I got this quote from Jerry Seinfeld, and he was talking about why he did Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. Is he sat there and he said, I feel more of a connection with a Finnish comic that I met 15 minutes ago than people in my own family.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about when you eventually decide to be a stand-up comic, even if it's only for a year or 2 years or 5 years, if you sit down and you can tell somebody that who's doing it for 20 or 30 years, your experience, and instantaneously they know that you're a comic, the walls come down, and you just become like you have the same job, only they've done it, and just like you said, they play it forward because someone told them, and then someone. The greatest compliment I've ever gotten from a fellow comic was Todd Glass was on the Kren show with us, and we went out to breakfast afterwards.
Sure.
And so I was sitting next to him, and I had about a 45-minute conversation about stand-up comedy in general, and he was telling me about Sarah Silverman and Louis C.K. and all this kind of stuff. But like, because they're people he knows, it'd be like if I talked about Alex and Garrett. And eventually he sits there and goes, you know what? And the funny thing about it is, I've gotten great feedback and great things about stand-up and learned so many things from comics that have only been in it for 5 years, not like guys like us. And I sat there and I go, Todd,
I'm not a guy like you, Todd.
I go, full disclosure, I've only done stand-up for a little over 5 years. And he looks at me and he just goes, yeah, but you're funny in your bones. And I sat there and I went, thank you.
Yeah.
That was the nicest thing anybody has ever said to me as a stand-up comic.
That's as good as you're going to get.
It more or less was just saying, but to me, like whenever I see a comic at a mic and I go up to him and I say to it, and I'm not trying to be, trying to be stupid, not trying to be whatever. I sit there and I go, keep coming out.
Yep.
I need to see you out more. When I say that to you, it's because, again, using Todd Glass's line, I see that you're funny in your bones. I see that there's something there that you have to keep working on. And if I never see you, it'll never happen.
It's very difficult to get good at stand-up if you're not doing it every day.
Yes.
And we all have mental stuff. Otherwise, we wouldn't look for the adulation of strangers in bars.
Yeah.
But in order to get good at it at the level that you want to, and being funny in your bones is great, but you have to work at it. And that's the ultimate goal of the show is I don't take weeks off. I want the podcast to be there for people to listen to the advice of who I get to spend time with.
Joe Bartnick, who, again, a great local comic who lives out in California, he has a great podcast about hockey. And when I was starting this, I asked him, I go, do you have any advice? And he sat there and he goes, the only piece of advice that I have been told about podcasting that is absolutely 100% I've learned is absolutely true is do one every week. Mm-hmm. Make it consistent, because if you drop off for a couple weeks or or pick it up, people will lose interest. People will
unsubscribe.
Yeah, unsubscribe.
I don't need it anymore.
You have to have it every week. So again, Garrett, and also a big supporter of the show. So he knows that up next we have news and notes from celebrities and sports and everything. Play the song, Alex. We start off with last week, one of the biggest, every couple of weeks it seems like we're losing another, icon. I mean, today it was Tom Petty, but last week it was Hugh Hefner, founder of Playboy. And one of the things that has come out is initially, just like I made in my 5 takes, everyone said wonderful things about him, that he was an icon of the sexual revolution, that he, was the proponent of civil rights and abortion rights and all this kind of stuff. Then about 3 days later, nobody was also a scumbag came out. Like the New York Post came out with a story about his just like how, just abuse of women and it just, was really weird about his sexuality, which I was like, oh, wow, Hugh Hefner, weird about sexuality. Never pegged that one. Anyways, so one of the things I wanted to ask the group, because, Alex, he's a fan of Playboy and everything like that. And we actually communicated the night of Hugh Hefner's passing that it was kind of like, oh, an icon, somebody that we both respect, whatever. How do you deal with someone who has a complex, legacy?
I don't.
You don't. You don't even deal with it. It's just
just like I liked that person for what I liked them for, and it's not that I'm saying that they're not they might have been a bad person in some way, but I like them for something. So. What
did you like Hugh Hefner about?
He's pretty cool. I mean, he made something pretty big and amazing.
From something that he started on his kitchen table with a loan from his mom.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's pretty impressive. And I think if anyone could do that, it's pretty impressive. Yeah, he might not have done it exactly in the right way, but I don't know.
Now, when you get to some women have written articles and some men have written articles that say that all he made his money off of was exploiting women and exploiting sexuality, and he was essentially just a pornographer that kind of gussied up the whole, dirty mag thing.
Right, but I mean, not everyone who's doing those is people that don't want to be doing them. You know what I mean? Not all of those Playboy models are people who are like, no, I don't want to do this. Don't take pictures of me. They wouldn't be there, And
it's not as if he invented pornography.
Yeah.
And if you do it as a classier level.
Yeah, you're showing them in a good light.
You're empowering in some ways. Granted, the grotto and the things that have happened at the Bunny Ranch and all the things that he does out there, maybe not the best place in the world, but it's an industry that was always going to be a little bit questionable.
See, I mean, and that's the thing is, it's like any sort of historical person. When someone talks about Thomas Jefferson, yes, he wrote the Declaration of Independence, but he also owned slaves.
Right.
Somebody talks about, a president, they would sit there, let's just bring up Bill Clinton. Obviously did a lot of great things, but also was a complete degenerate in his personal life. I mean, it's the yin and the yang of just people. And I guess, in comedy, if you would have said the name Bill Cosby 5 years ago, people would have reverence. Like, oh my
Right.
God, what an amazing comic.
And
But now he's a complete, like, oh, he's terrible. But the thing is, he didn't become less of a comic.
Even if you mention him as one of your favorite comics, you feel people wince. You feel that you're on eggshells to
Yeah.
say it. It doesn't take away from the fact that I knew those stories backwards and forwards. I know about the hernia. I know about Bill growing up, the Fat Albert tapes.
Yeah.
I watched the Cosby Show. It doesn't take away those positive memories. It certainly tarnishes them. But we like a comeback story. I don't think Bill's coming back.
Yeah. Well, like, and more recently, the big deal has been that the rumors about Louis C.K.
Sure.
and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and we saw Louis C.K. live. He's absolutely brilliant. But again, is there a chance that maybe he's into some weird stuff in his personal life? And so sometimes when you bring up Louis C.K., you'd be like, wow, I'm a really big fan of Louis C.K. They're like, well, you heard with maybe the Jen Kirkman. And I'm just like, yes, I agree that he might not be that there's rumors that he might be doing the terrible things, but in terms of his stand, and that's what's the weird thing about it, is like, on one hand, when someone does something amazing in one avenue, can we, like you said, just like them for that, and then just sit there? You can't ignore it, but you have to acknowledge it and just kind of move. I don't know.
Well, and you've been around sports. Money, these kids get a lot of money early on in their lives. Money doesn't make you smart, and talent doesn't make you a good person.
Right.
And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. And we can judge people as black and white, good and evil, but it's not the best way to look at any of us, and lest us not judge ourselves.
Except for Alex.
Except Alex, who's perfect.
Alex is
Yes.
perfect in every single way. Now, speaking of, kind of like the way, women view themselves and in terms of, maybe exploiting whatever. This was on Twitter. There was a big hubbub that Margot Robbie was doing an interview. Margot Robbie, obviously from Wolf of Wall Street, absolutely crushed that, and then in Suicide Squad, and just absolutely becoming one of the biggest stars in the world. She got interviewed about getting the role of Wolf of Wall Street. And they asked her, and she goes, I never thought I would get it. And they go, well, why did you think you would never get it? She goes, the first line when it was described about who this person was, and there's the picture, and I want this when she says this, the line that they gave her was, in comes the hottest blonde you've ever seen in your life.
Wow.
And when she read that, she goes, well, I'm not getting this.
That's a ridiculous way to put it, though,
But that's what. But the funny thing about it was, and then everybody on Twitter just ripped her. They all sat there with, she's just being a typical, woman who doesn't understand how beautiful she is and doesn't understand blah, blah, blah. But from her perspective, she sat there and goes, the way I viewed it was like if someone wrote in a movie script, okay, we're going to have Mike on, do this thing. And in the line, they said, the biggest, meanest looking guy you've ever seen in your life shows up.
Yeah.
I'd been like, yeah, there's a chance, I might not get that. There's always, they could bring Shaquille O'Neal in. They could bring in the guy, Mountain from,
You smile too much.
Yeah, I smile too much. But if someone said, hey, Mike, don't you think you're a big person? I know I'm a big person, but if you write in the script.
Yeah, I think you have to be, at least as an actor or an actress, you're going out there an awful lot and getting no's.
Yeah.
So you have some self-doubt. Obviously, you believe in yourself, but the most attractive human being in the world, nobody should be that big of a narcissist to think that
Yeah.
that's about them.
And if she did say, if she was like, I am the hottest woman in the world, she'd get shit for
We'd
that
hate
too.
her more. Yeah. We'd go, you go fuck yourself. That's so rude. No.
But it's like a kind of a catch-22 because on one hand, for her to say like, oh, I didn't think I'd get it, because then everyone shit on her like, oh, don't you understand how beautiful you are? But if she did sit there and say, yeah, I read the first line that said most beautiful woman in the world, like, yeah, that's me.
She was also relatively unknown, and it's Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio. To think that you get to play at that level as a woman who has never acted at that high of a level before, you should have some self-doubt. And granted, she's a stunning woman and did a great job in the role, so I think she knocked it out of the box, but I don't know.
Now,
This just makes you feel like you can't actually say what you're thinking at all,
Yes.
and how you feel at all.
No, there is no truth.
completely lie about everything that you say.
And I think that's one of the things, though, you can't, and that's why the people that do make a lot of money.
Yep.
Because so many people work in environments and work in situations and live lives where they can't say what they want to say. And that's one of the reasons why, and not to get political, why like a guy like a Donald Trump was very successful because he would get up there in front of large audiences and say what a group of people was actually thinking.
Yeah.
And so when they sat there and heard it, they were just like, yes, this is our guy. And they were passionate about it. Guys like Howard Stern, guys like Rush Limbaugh, guys like, any of the political commentators. When people sit there and go, who likes this guy? If you like one of the great, Rush Limbaugh, I believe, is an insanely talented broadcaster. You can talk about the fact that he's a piece of shit human being, or you don't like the fact that what he says. But as a pure broadcaster, exceptionally talented. And the thing about him is he has one of the lowest Q ratings, which means how many people like him in media. Like 80% of the people absolutely think he's the biggest scumbag in the world, but 20% of the people absolutely adore him, and that's why the guy makes $50 million a year.
And they'll seek out everything he says.
Yes. And if he wrote a book, they'll buy it. Same thing with a guy like a Howard Stern.
Stern bet on himself.
Yes.
He said, I'm going to go to Sirius. What are you going to do? Not follow me? You love my show. You listen to it every day.
You need it.
He's like, I'm going to give it to you 24 hours a day now.
Yeah.
We got the archives. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
And people subscribed in millions.
Yeah, he made Sirius.
Yes.
When they showed up, it was 700,000. Now it's up to 30 million. He pretty much is the only thing on that channel. Because really, if you ever listen to Sirius, and I listen to it because there's sometimes people I've known that's been on it, it's below podcasting, some of the stuff.
Yeah.
It's not great. I mean, there's music, and then like 900 people have shows that I would say probably about 80% of the shows on Sirius get less people listening to it than you and me get on our podcast.
Yeah.
But the thing is that
the subscribers are there for the sports package. They're there
Howard
for Stern.
And Howard Stern.
Or if you're a big fan of, one of the bands that gets their own station, whenever I'm in a rental car, I do the E Street Radio. I listen to the Bruce in there. It's great. They do a live concert every day. I'm not plugging these people. I'm sorry.
Yeah, seriously. Get Sirius.
I don't even have Sirius Radio.
I can't afford. We're Pittsburgh comics. We can't afford that shit. One thing that we also cannot afford is getting a massive amount of weird tattoos. So a model out of Canada did something that I felt was kind of, you should know anyway, but she apparently wants to do more PSAs and get the word out about tattooing your eyeball.
What does she want to say about it?
She says don't do it.
Sorry, I can't really look at this picture.
I'm in favor of her.
Anyway, show the picture for literally 2 seconds.
So she did
Well,
it then,
I mean,
I'm
it's going to
guessing?
be longer than 2 seconds.
Okay, so there's her. She is covered in tattoos.
The whites of her eyes have been purpled.
Yeah. So what happened was that she sit there and said, "Oh, I'm going to tattoo the whites of my eyeballs."
Tattoos, which are done by jamming a needle into your body repeatedly.
Yeah. And she apparently
Was that a picture of her?
Yes.
That was.
That was it. That's what she looks like from now on. And so that's why she's getting the word out that you shouldn't tattoo your eyeball.
So there's a tattoo shop on Smithfield Street downtown. Pittsburgh Tattoo Company.
Okay.
And I walked in there the one time because I was going to get a tattoo. And
Of this show?
No.
Damn it.
The guy who greets you, he has the whites of his eyes tattooed black.
Ah.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know where to look at your eyes, first of all. I have no idea. I mean, I think that's probably what he was going for there. But yeah, it was a...
You sure there weren't contact lenses?
I don't know. But
I hope
mean,
they're that. I hope they're that.
It really didn't look like that. It really looked like it was tattooed.
Well,
there.
according to this...
And I mean, he had the rest of his body tattooed. So like, well, why not just do it on your eye?
Did you end up getting a tattoo?
I didn't, but it wasn't because of that reason.
Okay. You're like, I'm going to new shop.
No,
One of the things...
he didn't scare me that much. I just didn't know where to look.
Yeah.
Where do you look?
One thing about getting tattoos, and you know what, do whatever you want to do.
Because you're
everything
a pro
like
at this, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things about getting is I always just, when you get them in places where it's impossible to cover them up.
Yes.
Where you get them all the way up to your neck or you get them on your face or all that kind of stuff. That is something you can never, or it's going to be very difficult to take away. So
What?
If
That's what tattoos are.
That's what
you
tattoos are.
You can't get rid of them.
You can't get rid of them.
Shit.
Okay.
Damn it.
But the problem is like, okay, well, like, I made a joke about this. So I'm sitting in McDonald's and this woman has like 5 kids and she's just like typical mom, like, oh, the world. And on her down her legs were like Guns N' Roses and lightning bolts and like, a nude woman with like a snake and all this kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, how does that woman in a couple years tell her son or her daughter, hey, watch her say, don't you dare ever try doing anything. But to me, that's like, your mom at one time was really fun.
You put your stories on your body.
Yeah, you just put there's no way to cover that up that like, okay, yeah, I was a wild child. No, you've got like every time you ever had sex with Warrant on your body, and it's never going away. But you obviously have the tattoos.
Yeah.
Very and beautiful
Just the
tattoos.
tattoo.
So if your daughter in the future sat there and you sit there and go, I'm gonna travel the world and I'm 15 and I'm gonna go be a roadie for the band that is popular when you have a 15-year-old daughter, and you go, no, you're going to school and you're gonna be a smart woman. She goes, what are you talking about? You were wild once, and then you're gonna sit there and go like, meh. I mean, what are you gonna do?
I don't really think that she would think that I was wild from the tattoos that I have. I mean, there's like a dinosaur on my ankle.
What are you talking about? That's
not
the
wild.
that's the
Most
sign
wild
of
times in
Yeah.
history.
yeah. Seriously, there was like dinosaurs roaming the earth,
But
and
I
you
mean,
were.
if I raise my kids correctly, they won't be doing that anyways. So.
So again, it comes down to raise your kids correctly.
Yeah,
My
and
dad
then nothing else
my
matters.
dad said as long as he's financially invested in any part of your life, you couldn't have any tattoos, but you could do whatever you want with your hair. So
Okay.
this prompted both my brother and I to have dreadlocks at different points in our lives.
Yes.
I had a mohawk during 2-a-days camp for football. I shaved my head without telling my parents. I would do whatever I want. But still now at 31, I have no tattoos because I don't want anything that badly.
But one thing though that I love is the fact that he understood that hair grows back.
My dad's a college professor and he knows hair's temporary and he wants you to be able to get a job when you leave school.
Yeah. But you know what? One job you could always get is the Mike Sasson Show. We encourage the amount of tattoos. Now, one thing we also encourage is make sure you take care of yourself. And John Cena, this came out yesterday, and as a person who is extremely hairy, I feel for this man. He claims that every day he has to spend at least a half of an hour on hair removal.
To be honest, that seems very quick
You're,
me.
you're saying that
If he's shaving his whole body,
He
except
says-
his head, because he has hair on his head.
he said from basically his ears down, he has no hair.
Yeah, and that only takes him a half an hour. It takes me like a half an hour to shave my legs.
It's a lot of body coverage, yeah.
It takes
And
me.
why is he doing it every day also? That's weird.
Well, they have at least one or two big shows every week, and I guess you don't want it to grow back. It takes
Also,
longer.
he has the money to get laser hair removal. Why wouldn't you just do that?
Maybe he
That's the
doesn't.
easiest.
Maybe these are all revelations that we need to go. Don't you have the money for one thing? I've looked into lazy hair removal because obviously I'm the hairiest man alive. And one thing that like they read into it is number one, make sure you go to a good one because that could really screw you up. And because you can get like 3rd-degree burns and all this other kind of stuff. And then the other thing they always talk about is like you have to go back 2 or 3 different times and you have to make sure it grows a certain length. It's not terribly easy.
No, but it's not hard for someone who has, millions of dollars.
But if he gets screwed up and all of a sudden on the front of his shirt, I guess his pecs has like a big burn mark or something
Yeah,
like
but he
that.
has the money to go to the best person, right?
Is there the best? I want to find the best
Yeah, I'm sure
laser
there's-
hair person
Also,
in the world.
What are you getting removed, Mike? What were you looking into laser hair removal for?
The back hair.
Oh, okay. But wouldn't it be weird if all of your back hair was gone and you still have your front hair? I think
I would only be-
personally, I think that's weird.
Personally, I would have to get rid of all of it, but at the time, financially, like it's not cheap.
You do
Yeah,
half and half.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like getting it's like when this past weekend I got a flat tire and I only had the money to like fix like 2 of the tires, and so like the guy comes up to me and he sits there like at the tire, he goes, you actually probably need 4 tires. And I look at him and I go, yes, but financially 2 will do today. And he goes like, well, I'm like, dude, it's like a guy walks in with a gunshot wound and you're like, we also have diabetes. I'm like, let's deal with the gunshot wound first.
Problem one.
Yeah, problem 1. And then we'll deal with the fact that I might need to like cut down on the
Give
sweets.
me the list of things. I'll come back next month.
Seriously,
Yeah.
we'll go from there. And then then he had this line. He goes, well, what kind of tire preference do you like? I go, least expensive. And he goes, that's our most popular.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah, get me shit. Speaking of the fact that today is October 3rd, I didn't even know this until I was Googling it today. Today is Mean Girls Day.
I didn't know what that meant until I saw that it was hashtag on the promo for the show, but I looked it up.
Yeah, apparently, like in the show, in the movie, they mention obviously October 3rd, and so today is Mean Girls Day. So good for Mean Girls, great movie.
Yes.
Now, one thing that I found really, really funny and really, really sad is obviously Lindsay Lohan, since that film, has not done tremendously well.
She's had a rough go.
She's had a rough go of it, and so they interviewed her this past weekend, and not surprisingly, she is begging Tina Fey and Lauren Michaels to
write
make
another
a
one.
Mean Girls 2. And now, I mean, now she's like in her late 20s, early 30s. Everyone in I think one of them is like in their 40s. I mean, it would be weird to sit there and do that. But here's how you want to talk about the quintessential desperation. Not only is she begging Tina Fey, she goes, I've already taken care of one thing. I've already written a script.
Oh, she wrote it.
She wrote Mean Girls
That sounds
2.
great.
You know
I
how
wanna
Tina
see
wrote
it.
the whole first one, and it was great?
Yeah, it was Amy Poehler and Tina Fey and all these people that are brilliant comedians.
Yeah.
They wrote the first one. Well, Lindsay Lohan wrote the second one.
I think
punch
she
it
should
up a
just
little
play
bit.
all of the parts.
I so want to watch a Lindsay Lohan written Mean Girls 2.
Yeah.
And I want no one to touch it.
Yeah.
It would be almost like The Room level funny if they just sat there and went, no, we're not touching a line of this.
This is great,
We're gonna absolutely, and we're gonna make it bold letters, written by Lindsay Lohan. I could not imagine what this movie would be.
I feel like you get so many ticket sales just because people are like, I want to see that. Like, what on earth did she do? People would be so
novelty of
curious.
it
They
would
do
be
it, yeah.
It would just be well. That's again speaking of The Room. One of the movies that I'm looking forward to, hopefully watching this winter, is James Franco.
I saw he and his brother did it, yeah.
did a I guess a backstory of The Room. If you've ever seen The Room, it's quintessentially one of the worst movies of all time. So it goes into how this movie was made. But again, I'm thinking I want to watch a movie about the worst movie ever made, and I would actually want to watch. Seeing Mean Girls 2, if it was written by Tina Fey, I'd be like, okay, I might watch that.
Yeah.
But if Mean Girls 2 was written by Lindsay Lohan,
You're more excited.
That's more exciting. It reminds me of another story, and I didn't get into it, but last week they announced that they were literally a week away from starting to film Sex and the City 3. And they had all of the people in line. They were scouting locations in New York City. Everything was done, and then they shut down the production because the older one, Kim Cattrall said
Wow,
no.
you knew that really well.
Who are the other ones? Sarah Jessica Parker?
Yeah, we
That's
knew that
it.
one.
Cat, I don't know the other
The
one.
redhead, and then the one who I thought was the most attractive.
I agree.
Kind of
Davis?
Yes,
Kristen Davis.
There you go. Anyways,
Not helping Alex.
Yeah.
I don't know any Sex in the City stuff.
wow,
Sorry, you guys
you're
know
the first
more than
woman
I
that
do.
has
Yeah.
no idea.
I watched season 1 with an ex-girlfriend. That's as far as I made it.
I watched one, and I was just like, meh. Anyways,
I need somebody to root for.
yeah, and I was just sitting there going, oh, it's four really insanely rich women living an insanely amazing life. It's not something I want to watch every Friday. Anyways, so they announced that they had to shut down production. And so the rumor is that Kim Cattrall said, the only way I'm going to be in this movie is Warner Brothers or whoever was producing the movie had to agree to do 3 of my movies that I had written.
Wow.
And I sat there and I was just like, I so want to read those movies. I so want to see exactly what, because you'd have to think that if they were at least a possibility of being decent,
Some producer would have entertained the idea already.
Some executive would have been like, okay, we'll put away $50 million to make these 3 okay movies on the chance that Sex and the City 3 is a big hit.
Right.
There's a big market for this. Those 3 scripts had to be so terrible that they literally were like, there's no way
It's not worth it to
this
us.
could literally ruin our name if we made these 3 movies. And then someone else brought up the fact of, could she have possibly, in a way to sabotage Sex and the City 3?
Didn't want to do it. Yeah.
Almost produced it. Produced it, whatever, and created the 3 worst scripts of all time to say, like, okay, I absolutely
bluff,
force
I
you.
dare
Call my
you.
bluff.
Yeah.
I hope you to make this movie about how great, Mao Zedong was. Or I want you to create this glowing portrait of Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun as a 9.5 weeks. I want you to, which by the way, I just named 2 movies that I think would be actually pretty good. Anyways,
You're starting to work on your scripts.
I just have to work on my scripts. Now, we're going to close with this. This got me upset as a comedian. So, obviously the Comedy Cellar right now is probably the coolest comedy club in the country.
Yeah.
Like if you're on that stage, it's not the biggest that I've seen shows in New York there. It's a very small room. It's almost like the size of like a ham bones. It's not very, but they smash in about 200 people into this thing.
But big names pop in.
The big names, everything like that. So recently, Amy Schumer, who goes there and works on material and all that kind of stuff, shows up and she brings on stage Madonna. So Madonna, and we have the pictures of Madonna and
Telling
Amy
jokes.
Schumer on stage, I assume doing stand-up comedy, and this is where I get a little bit upset. We are both comedians that are working our butt off, and if within 5 years we earn the right to get on that stage, it would be incredible. That would be an incredible moment to take a picture with that behind there. Mike Sasson doing his, hairy back bit in.
Fingers crossed. It's lasered off by then.
That I can afford the lasered off by then. But the thing is, and the fact that she got on there,
She beat us to it.
she beat us to it simply because back in 1984 she sang, like a virgin. And I'm just
you're anti-Madonna music too.
I am.
Clearly.
I respect Madonna as a businesswoman and staying relevant for 40 years in an industry that gives you about 2 months and then
Correct.
spits you out. I respect that, but as a stand-up comic, I almost feel that there's certain sacred ground that you have to earn your right to
step on that stage.
It's like the same people who like in town who will do one open mic at the Improv, take a picture, make it their Facebook header, and then everybody sits there and goes, "Oh, my buddy Dave performed at the Improv." No, he didn't.
Right, he did an
I've
open
earned
mic.
money working at the Improv. Okay, I've been on weekend shows. This person went on a Wednesday night and did 5 minutes of pure silence.
And he was required to bring.
It was required to bring 10, 15 people and still got absolute silence.
Yeah.
That is sacred ground to get it. And the fact that she got, I don't know, am I making too big of it? Absolutely, I'm making too big of it. But the fact that she brought him on, and then if I'm sitting there and I'm, again, as a comic fan, now the problem is right now, if you go to New York, it's like, oh, you get a slice of pizza, you get a hot dog, you go see a comedy show. Like, that's almost what New York is.
That's to
becoming.
Midwest people, yeah.
Yeah, to Midwest people. And so, like, when I went to the cellar, like, the person sitting next to me was from Spain.
Sure.
Another person on the other side of me was from, by the way, didn't laugh at anything, and I didn't realize it until afterwards, from Spain, didn't speak any English. But he was at a comedy show.
Got handed a flyer on the street.
Well, not even, this is the cellar. You have to
Purposely be there.
You have to, well, this is how I got in. The person I was with, Melissa, who was in New York, she knew because she was like, "Hey, do you want to see a show at the Cellar?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to." And I thought it would just be like, "Hey, we'll show up." She goes, "Okay, well, let's reserve it right now." And this was the day before.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so she goes, "Okay, let's see if we can do 10 o'clock." Sold out already. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is just a regular Tuesday 10 o'clock show. It's already sold out. She goes, "Okay, we can maybe get on the wait list." So she put us on the wait list, and then we had to show up, and there's a line for the wait list, and she went up and talked to the doorman, and eventually the guy was like, "Let me see if I got 2 rooms." And she literally goes, "Stand back. I have to think that it's 2 people my size to where she could get in because she's a smaller person. Because if they think it's you, then they'll be like, no, we can't fit this guy." So eventually she talked to him, and then eventually he goes, "Yeah, we got 2. And when he takes me to the place where I'm supposed to sit, maybe this amount of space.
Sure.
To where it was like me and her, like, yeah, I'm like this for 2.5 hours. And then, yeah, you got to do the 2 drink minimum. And the drinks were not cheap. I got like a Jack and Coke and like a beer. The whole deal for me, for one person, was like $65. So this place is making bank.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I got to see Big J. Okerson, I got to see Attell, and that's what if I'm sitting in that audience and all of a sudden I see, oh, Amy Schumer's going to do, and she brings up Madonna. On one hand, I'm like, oh, it's Madonna, but then I bet you there's a good chance Madonna isn't going to say anything remotely
Well, we
funny.
don't know if Madonna was on for very long.
Yeah, I don't.
Do you?
From that picture, she may have just brought her up and.
It's like, hey, it's Madonna.
It doesn't. I would have been more upset if it was Madonna alone on the stage and it appeared like she was telling jokes. But
Yeah,
if it's
absolutely.
Amy going, "Hey, I brought my friend Madonna." I don't know what she's trying to do up there other than get.
I don't
cheap
want her on
pop,
that stage.
But
I think it's sacred ground. It would be okay. Next door to the Cellar is Cafe Wah.
Okay.
Where like Richard Pryor and George Carlin and Lenny Bruce and Jimi Hendrix and freaking all these people of flanking on his Bob Dylan all got their starts. If like a kid doing, playing the ukulele got on that stage, I'd be like, if I was a musician, I'd be like, dude, that's Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, that's not for
That's
you.
Bob Dylan. You got to earn that right to be on that stage. Maybe I'm just too much.
Yeah, it seems like you're just a little jealous.
I think I'm just basically a no talent hack.
Very good.
Anyways,
Very good lighting for Madonna, though. I thought she was like a 20-year-old from this picture.
well, she
I
definitely
didn't know it was Madonna at all. So
she definitely knows how to make sure to take a picture.
yeah.
Yes.
It's like see 50 feet away. Yeah, keep going. I learned this from when I took my pictures for Q929, the one that I use as my headshot.
Yeah, you look thin.
I look thin and I look good because he's a professional photographer. He literally was about 50 yards away from me.
I need you to turn sideways.
Yeah. He knew exactly how to make me look okay because he's like, okay, the farther we are away from you, the better.
Yep.
Close-ups only work on insanely attractive people. People that look like you stand in the Strip District. I'll be in Lawrenceville.
I got a lens.
And I got a lens. Trust me. We'll get something. We'll be good there. Someone who is insanely talented and insanely wonderful is Garrett Titlebaum. Garrett, thank you very much.
Thank
I
you
hope
for
you had a
having
good
me.
time.
I did.
Again, the podcast, tell them where to find it.
Garrett Titlebaum, It's Nice to See He's Working. You can go to itsnicetosee'sworking.com. It's available on iTunes, Laughable, Stitcher, all the great podcast places out there.
You're a sweetheart.
Thank you,
Anyways,
bud.
Garrett Titlebaum, give it up for him. Next up, it's going to be Comment Your Ass Off, or until we come up with a better name for it. It's the Mike Sasson Show, live on the River's Edge. We'll be right back.
Brian Crawford letting you know that Kevin Slogic, my State Farm agent in Allison Park, is here to help life go right and reminds you that you're listening to the River's Edge Radio Network.
Well, go, it's green, come on! Go!
God damn it, Brian. You need to calm down
I'm
with the road
sick of these
rage.
people, these assholes.
It's the road rage, man. You gotta calm down on the road rage.
Well, I want to get to where we're going. We have a lot of great stuff coming up. We're going to the Falling Water,
Bicycle heaven.
the Mattress Factory,
Tuck knob.
Trundle Manor. All right, which way do I go? Which way do I go? Come on,
right,
come on.
right.
Too late now.
Right, come on.
Too late now. You know, I gotta keep going. I'm not gonna sit here like some asshole.
Oh, come on, man.
All right, you're listening to the Culture Cruise. You can find us at riversedgepgh.com.
Your local Pittsburgh area museum podcast.
Yes, riversedgepgh.com, and come take a ride with us.
It is the Mike Sasson Show live at www.riversedgepgh.com. Listen after the show, and for the other great talk shows, we saw some great ones at the Pod Party this past Saturday, so keep listening. Also, the great local music. We had great music at the Pod Party. Again, thank you very much for everybody who joined us at the Pod Party. Thank you very much to Garrett Titlebaum. He gave us cool pens. So if you get a cool pen from him, again, it's nice to see he's working.com. So go see his podcast or go listen to his podcast or see his podcast. Show up whenever he's performing and just look at him because he's just a wonderful human being. Now, one thing I was just thinking of the other day.
Yeah. What were you thinking?
My grandfather and both my father always had a line whenever we would do anything. And I always hated it. But I now do it myself, is he would always sit there at the end of anything, end of any day, end of any experience, and he'd sit there and go, Michael, so what did we learn today?
Oof.
So, Alex,
I hate that.
Okay.
I hate that. You do it to me all the time.
what did we learn
You ask
today?
me
Alex?
questions I don't want to answer and
Like
stuff.
what? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. What are you thinking? Oh, how do you think this went? 2 seconds after we did it, you know? How's your day?
Yeah, just general,
Just you basically ask me any question.
Yeah, you more or less me talking to you. You're not a huge fan of. What did I learn today? First and foremost, I want to sit there and say, insanely lucky to be on the River's Edge. So thank you very much to Brian Crawford. A great time on Saturday. If ever you have a chance to go to a River's Edge event, take advantage. Again, it was free beer, free mead. Thank you very much again to North Country Brewing and to Laurel Highlands Meadery and the Panza Gallery. All were amazing. It was hundreds of people listening to us doing our podcast, and it was great. Hopefully some of them stuck around and listened to today's show. If you didn't, obviously we will reprint it and do all that kind of- We'll reprint it. I use such ancient freaking wording. We'll rebroadcast. I don't even know. Who cares?
We'll
Anyways,
reprint it. No, we'll print it.
we'll print it. I want it printed. I want a transcript like it's an Oprah show given out for free so people and kids can, like, the written word needs to come back. Anyways, our final segment is, I'm just calling it Comment Your Ass Off.
Comment your ass off.
Comment your ass off. Do we have a song? I like it. Comment your ass off, or until we come up with a better name for it. We asked you to comment throughout the show. Comments are below. We are reading every one of them. That is our commitment to you.
Everyone.
Do it.
All right.
Do it, Alex.
My mom has a lot to say this week.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. No, shit's all good.
Okay.
She loved Tom Petty. She said, I saw him at AJ Palumbo in 80s or 90s, but something not right about the sound systems in AJ. I was so disappointed, but it wasn't his fault.
AJ Palumbo, back before it was redone, was renowned for having terrible acoustics.
Yeah.
Like they had, I had a buddy of mine who saw Prince there.
Oh, man, that would be terrible.
Yeah, and was so livid that it sounded shitty.
Yeah.
And it's just
like that's one show you want to sound very good.
Yeah.
But I mean, even the dancing was probably, you're like, oh, okay, if there's no sound, like, at least I get to watch Prince run around the stage and dance for a long time.
I saw Prince it was on the internet. It was his first television appearance back in 1980. He was only 2 years out of high school. And you saw there's certain performers where it's like, okay, that person had to develop, that person had to, work on it and develop. And so you see the first time they're on and they're kind of weak or whatever. No, this guy right out of the chute was incredible. And if I was at a show where it wasn't great acoustics, yeah, that'd have been a problem.
Also, her favorite Tom Petty song was Refugee, and they all love the show, the Pod Party, which is great. Thanks, Mom.
Yay.
And she finds it really hard to imagine that my father would intimidate anyone. If only you really knew him, she says.
There you go. I wasn't intimidated. It was just very funny the first time that you meet a guy and his first things out of your mouth is, I got a bone to pick with you. Because you've mentioned that in the past that when the family does watch that the content sometimes gets a little risque. And so I just was waiting for him to sit there and go, why do you keep making my daughter talk about it? And I'm just like, I didn't make her
stop making her talk about penises and stuff.
My daughter's never seen a penis in her life. I'm like, you're right.
Yes. Brian Crawford, Godfather of the River's Edge, one of our segments said it had him in tears. Aw.
Because was that sad?
I didn't see him crying. Sarah says, I love Jesus and I also enjoy alcohol. Big fan of both.
So did Jesus. He made alcohol from water. So he was a big fan of alcohol.
Hell yeah. If only I could do that.
What would you, if you could turn water into wine, how drunk would you be daily?
Oh. Well, I mean, but you still need water, I guess, So I don't know. I would just have more money. That's it. I would just have more money because then I don't need to buy wine all the time.
I love that's the one miracle that Jesus did.
Miracle.
Miracle. That's the one miracle that everyone remembers. That just shows our mind. Everybody's like, well, he cured lepers and he, rose from the dead. They're like, nope, water and wine. That's the good one.
Yeah, that's like the coolest superpower to have.
Yeah.
Brandon said, do it. Sometimes if you tape yourself, you get ammo for the next show or a tag on a joke.
Okay.
My mom also thinks that it's crazy. My bus driver recognized my wrist from the commercial, but hey,
You ever met a guy with a wrist fetish?
And I don't know if those exist.
I bet you it does. I bet you there's somebody there's probably porn in which the wrist.
That sounds like great porn to be a part of. I'm just saying, out of all fetish porn, I feel like that would be the best to be a part of, just because what are you really doing with my wrist, and what am I going to be sad about? Like, you could shit on my wrist and I don't think I would be mad about it.
That would be the name of Alex's porn. Shit on my wrist.
But I mean, like, seriously, like, of all places for someone to shit on you.
One of the best, it was a Mr. Show.
Mr. Show.
Mr. Show was an old sketch comedy show on HBO, and one of the funniest segments they had was a bit about, it was like a Boogie Nights thing, only it was a guy who had a 3-inch long taint. And so it was about like the world of this guy. It was almost like he was Dirk Diggler, only instead of having a giant penis, he had a giant taint. So his world, and so like he was in taint misbehaving and all this other kind of weird stuff. God. And so it was just so funny and so weird and everything like that. And the thing that got me was that would be kind of like the guy who had like the most insanely unbelievable wrist. And so like he's in wrist porn and like, he'd be like the world of wrist. Like it'd be like the 70s and he's doing cocaine off his wrist and all the guys would be like, wow, that's an insane wrist. I can't believe that wrist is so big.
If it doesn't exist now, I'm creating it.
You're creating. So you want. So just wait for Alex Clemis wrist porn. Go ahead.
Kathy also says, oh my God, I loved Jerry Lewis. Didn't know his personal baggage, but loved his movies and had a huge crush on him when I was young.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a fetish, liking, oh boy, that kind of guy. And you having whatever. We'll keep moving.
Steven says, listen to Chris Rock's comedy bit about bullet control. It's from the early 2000s. He talks about if bullets cost $5,000, there wouldn't be any senseless killings.
I would sit there and say there has to be something to where it's like, yeah, you can own any gun you want, but the bullets cost $5,000, or you have a limit to the amount of bullets.
Right. Yeah.
That could be a way around it. But again, the fact of the matter is until people stop getting elected because they support the NRA, nothing's going to happen. So, sorry.
This one's one of my favorites. Orlinda. A very interesting name.
Cool.
I've never heard that name before. Have you?
Love the name.
No? Okay. She says, "Hey, Mike, not sure how well you know Howard Stern, but a few of my high school whackpackers are coming for my wedding on October 28th. But a couple will be coming in on Thursday, Friday before then. Perhaps we can stop in for a minute." Smiley face with glasses. Thumbs up.
There you go. Cool.
Nothing. Okay.
I don't. We'll reread that in the
Orlinda.
future.
Yeah. We'll think about it, Orlinda.
We'll think about anything. The problem is the show's on Tuesday, so I don't know. We do a special one.
Yeah, where Howard Stern comes.
We'll see what happens.
You know him.
Yeah, me and him text
Go
every day.
way back.
Yeah, he buys mansions at the Hamptons, and I'm shopping at. I'm like, ooh, the 2 for $3 double McCheeseburgers. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh man. Sarah says, "I miss Garrett's beard." I agree, Sarah. I think people are always
Garrett-
better with beards.
People are always better with beards. You like my beard. You're a huge fan of my beard.
I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of your beard. I think
That's
that you
sad.
look better with it.
Well, anything that covers my face, I think you're a huge fan
Exactly.
of. A bag, I think you would be, especially if it was plastic. I think you'd be a huge fan of. Go ahead.
Sarah says, "If Brian is the godfather, does that make me the fairy godmother?"
If that's what you want to be known as.
We will gladly call you that.
Okay.
Kathy also says, "Always a sucker for funny men. What can I say?" Meaning that she just listened to me talking about people shitting on my wrist.
And thought that's the way you got to do it. Thank you very much for everyone who's commented on the show. Comment away even after the fact. If it's after
do it.
Tuesday morning, we will respond. We will
read
respond
them.
the next day, just like we did the guy who said that he doesn't drink alcohol because he wants to be filled with the Spirit of Christ. Hey, we responded. We don't lie. Anyways, thank you again to Garrett Titlebaum. Thank you again, everyone who went to the pod party this past Saturday. Next Tuesday will be another Mike Sasson Show.
Nuh-uh.
I just shocked it.
What?
That was when I'll be honest with you, sometimes I get mad at Alex because she goes, "You keep yelling." That last time, I just yelled.
Yeah, you did surprise everyone.
I just yelled. Anyways, keep listening to The River's Edge for the great music at www.riversedgepgh.com. My name's Mike Sasson. That is the best producer in internet radio history. Alex Clemens will be back next Tuesday. Bye.